to talk about something. Us, and the way people see some brown people say the way us are being treated or the way they're treating us. Let me tell you, I don't care about us anymore. I care about myself. Here's why. It's not because I'm just so self-centered and narcissistic that I don't care about other people. No. The us is the brown folks are not united. And I'm talking about, in this case, just brown Americans, because I know that's brown people all over, like in other continent of Africa and all over the world, Mexico and other areas. I'm not deep into their culture enough to really talk about them, okay? I've seen their culture. I might have been places to have ideas of it, but I don't have enough to really comment on these other people like that. I was born and raised in the United States of America, and I was raised in Tuskegee, but not necessarily, I was raised in the country, so not necessarily a brown neighborhood, but I went to a brown school. Anyway, I want to talk about how it's not about us anymore because the us are not united. So like if somebody wants to treat me or somebody a certain way and I know it's because I'm a brown woman, I recognize the need for change, but I'm not going to do it for a whole group of people. I'm going to do it for myself as an individual. Because brown people have taken too much. Brown people could have come together, and this didn't have to come to where it is right now. This didn't have to get to where it is right now. It's getting worse because the door is open for brown people just to be disrespected. Okay, brown people are just not taken seriously. Brown people, they're not taken seriously as somebody who wants to have a place in the world. They're not taken seriously as people who want to build their communities, because most people see that brown people don't want to, because it's more than just one or two people that want the brown community to come together. It takes a whole collective. Okay, so the only thing you can do with that is 3 or 4 brown people can get together on their own and build on their own, but it's not enough to even be noticed. Really, it's not enough to even be noticed. Because I feel like brown people have allowed a lot of corrupt people to come in and call themselves leaders. And a community just shouldn't have leaders. In all other communities that I've seen, you might have political leaders and all that stuff like you have anywhere else, but you don't just have somebody that just call themselves a leader of the community like you see in the brown community, like you see some of these people in the brown community now that just that's influencers of the brown community, with the bigger YouTube channels, with the bigger platforms, and those are like the leaders. Brown people always had leaders, and those leaders were always wanted to hold them back. They were always they were never sincere in helping brown people to advance, but was always they always was partnered with the opposition. They were always getting paid from the opposition to make sure to ensure that the collective of brown people, their consciousness stay low. They stay low in consciousness. Okay. But you know what, I was going to say we're not really one, but at the same time, I know I said that before, but we could be, because you are as strong as the weakest among you. And really, when you hold down brown people, you kind of hold down everybody, because what is everybody else? What is everybody else? So holding down that particular group of people around the world, that's why it's not going to be much change. But I'm not going to say anybody else is holding them down either, because the world was populated by brown people before it was anybody else. So how did all this invasion happen when it was populated by brown people before anywhere else? How can people who were that united and that tight and that set on their spiritual systems just be broken apart like that? Well, here's why. Because divine order for brown people is just matriarchy. That's just it. It's just matriarchy, but it's healthy matriarchy, not toxic matriarchy. Okay? They're not in divine order with the Great Mother. Okay, they're not in divine order with the Great Mother. And so you see all these other entities that do stuff that seem like they're against nature and all this stuff because that's just who they are. They can't be anything other than they are. But that's not what brown people are supposed to be. Okay, so the divine order for brown people is just the Great Mother. And until they get that right, and get in the correct divine alignment and stop worrying about the egos and stuff. Because alignment with the Great Mother doesn't mean that the man or the woman loses anything. Because it's all healthy. So it's not to be worried about any gender. Okay? So, yeah. Until that's right, it's not ever going to get right among brown people. I'm sorry, I don't care how much they try. Until that is together. And I realize they want to get into all these different spiritual systems, but those spiritual systems some of these spiritual systems don't seem to get them but so far. You got something that's comfortable, but it seems to not get them but so far. It's not doing anything to remove other entities out the way that's currently want to destroy everything. It's not doing enough to do that. So, like I said before, because somebody was wanting to blame Caucasians or white supremacy or whatever on the reason that Africa was in such famine. Nobody really has the power to go to a continent like that and just. They don't have that power. They were given the power, whether people want to believe it or not. They were given the power to do that. And I said before, it was prophesied in that first book, that volume 1, about the Sibyls. It was by this book called Mama Zogbe, Mamazogbe, Mama Zogbe, and it's volume 1, and it's just discussing the Sibyls. That's Sybils, the Sibyls, and a hijacking of, the mother goddess and all the images of the goddesses, and it was returned to the male deities, and stuff like that. And how the Catholic Church hijacked all those practices, But anyway, one of those priestesses of Mami Wata, the Sibyls, they prophesied that this was going to happen, that was going to happen to parts of Africa, that was going to happen to parts of Africa. I suspect that the parts of Africa that stuff is happening to is where they were supposed to be matriarchal in divine order. Because it's not necessarily happening all over that continent. But, yeah, and it might not have been called Africa. So that particular area, those particular areas where you do see that severe famine, it might look like another group of people that did it because they carried out the action, but it was already in the spiritual world, probably hundreds of years before it even happened. It was already in the spiritual world. Anyway, that's it. But yeah, I was just talking about us and brown people and specifically brown Americans. I wouldn't worry too much about how other brown people are getting treated these days any longer unless, every now and then I still, try to reach out, but, at the same time, I got to get it back too. And unfortunately, a lot of times, brown people don't get that support and love from each other. So I don't have it to worry about how some other brown person is getting treated by somebody of another culture. I don't have it to worry about because brown people are the least supportive and the least loving of each other. So I don't have it in me to worry about how they're getting treated, man or woman. Now I still don't like to see what happened to the children, but what can I do about that? Because I'm not going to try to do anything by myself. Because when I decide to do something, it's going to be a whole lot of stuff that's just going to be removed. Okay. So like if I decide to do something, what am I doing? Well, if I decide to do something about it, a whole lot of stuff gonna be removed, and it's not people gonna disagree with it. Well, I wouldn't even discuss it with people because people need to come together if they want change. But to want somebody else to do it by themselves, well, however that's gonna be done, that's how it's gonna be done. You know. And it's not to disagree with because people should have come together. One person do it, it's gonna be done how it's gonna be done. And it will be done, and it might not be in a pretty way. Because if people want to be pretty, then people should have came together. It's not going to be cute, but something's going to be done about it, but it ain't going to be cute. Okay? Because it's been left up to a force just to go on and handle that. The brown people had the option to come together and take care of it in a more sweeter way. They didn't want to do it. It's going to be taken care of because it's been left to something else to take care of it, and it's not going to be cute, and it's not going to be in a way that many people agree with. But anyway, that's it. Now I'll talk later.